good answers. So this is Career Aid Hub, and today we are having one of our webinars. We have them every 2 weeks, and we try to bring industry experts to come talk to us about different trends in technology. Could be business analysis, data, product management, just different aspects of technology. And today we are going to be talking about testing, and we have a very seasoned, please, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, and we have a very seasoned technologist or analyst with us. She has years of experience, and I'm sure she'll be able to give us some very wonderful tips about testing, how to write test cases, and how to carry out those test cases. Now, I can't say everything she's going to say, but I'm eager to learn too. I'm also eager to hear what she wants to at least pick something or learn something, because I know there's something to learn today. And thank you for coming.
Okay, perfect. I hope everyone can hear me.
Very well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Harry. Before I start my presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to say a big well done to Career Aid Hub team for what you guys are doing in the community. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Honestly, what you're doing is truly commendable. Well done. And then for our audience tonight, I'd like to say good evening and thank you for joining. If you have any questions while I'm presenting, please feel free to put them in the comment section, and Harry can help me take notes of the questions, and then we'll look at them at the end of our presentation. So without taking any more of our time, I'll start. Today I'm talking about test cases, creating and executing test cases. We will be discussing what a test case is, types of test cases, the test case parameters we have, popular test case management tools, and then we'll also discuss a sample test case, and then we'll take our questions and address them at the end of the presentation. So what is test cases? Test cases are the set of positive and negative executable steps of a test scenario, which has a set of preconditions, the test data, the expected results, the post conditions, and then the actual results. We also have what we call the test case template, and that is a document that enables the testers to develop the test cases for a particular test scenario in order to verify whether the features of an application are working as intended or not. So basically, test cases are just a set of conditions for evaluating a particular feature of a software product to determine its compliance with the business requirements. So after the requirements have been collected, these requirements are used to develop the solution. Now, in order to verify that the features that was designed are compliant with those requirements, test cases are developed and executed to confirm that the system is working as it is expected to. Now that brings us to the next question. Why are test cases important? They're important simply because they define what must be done to test the system. Using test cases allows developers and testers as well to discover the errors that may have occurred during development or defects that were missed during ad hoc tests. So another importance that comes to mind is apart from the error or bug discovery, it's also a means of documenting how the system is expected to work. Now, if you work in an agile environment where you provide some maintenance and support to systems, there are situations where you may need to refer to the test cases to confirm steps of how the modules or the processes within the module or system works. So for example, in my department, we support about 16 systems, and I cannot remember step by step how the processes in these systems work. think we're having some feedback. Please, can we mute?
Yeah, I'm so sorry for that. I'm trying to mute them as fast as possible.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Thank you. So I was giving an example. In my department, we have about 16 systems that we support, and I can't remember all of the processes. None of us can. So, and there's always a need to resolve one issue or the other. With the help of test cases, it's easy to see the steps of how, each of those processes work. And then we are able to use those test cases to trace the errors and also confirm if the user is actually following those steps and, trying to figure out where the error happened or what caused the error. So that's just another importance that I wanted to, bring to our awareness. So quickly, I'll talk about the types of test cases. Some of them are, number one, we have functionality test case. The functionality test case is just based on the system specifications or user stories and allows tests to be performed without accessing the internal structure of the software. The test is usually written by the QA team. Number two, we have performance test cases. These test cases help validate response times and confirm the overall effectiveness of the system. Number three, we have the unit test case. Unit test cases involve analyzing individual units or components of the software to confirm that each unit performs as expected. Now, bear in mind that a unit is the smallest testable element of the software. I want to pause here and say something quickly. Now, the choice of test case to be used will depend on the preferred test approach, and that is based on the solution designed or the organizational standards. Sometimes there are test case documents that will include more than one type of test case. So, for example, you may be required to test the solution for a bank. The test case document could include test cases for a unit within the solution and the user interface for the solution. So let me talk quickly about the user interface test case before I give more examples or give an example to further clarify. So with user interface test cases, this type of test case can verify that a specific element of the graphical user interface, otherwise known as the GUI, look and perform as expected. So with the user interface test cases, it can help reveal errors in elements that the user interacts with, such as grammar and spelling errors, broken links, and cosmetic inconsistencies. So let's go back again to the bank app that I was talking about, and you having your test case document that has a combination of unit test cases and user interface test cases. So the user interface test case could, that has to do with cosmetics. You want to see that the page loads as expected. And then you want to see that when you land on the welcome page, you're seeing welcome username at the top right as you should. And then the word welcome is properly spelled. While a functionality test case for that same page will be something like confirming that the tab order of the fields on the screen, works as it should. So it's a lot of paying attention to details, okay? So we'll continue with the types of test cases. Number 5, we have security test cases. These types of test cases are used to confirm that the system restricts actions and permissions when necessary to protect data. 6, we have integration test cases. This type of test case is written to determine how the different software modules interact with each other. Okay, then we also have database test cases. This type of test case aims to examine what is happening internally, helping testers understand where the data is going in the system. I'll pause again and give examples on these 3 test cases we've just talked about to give some more clarity. So with security test cases, let's imagine that we're dealing with a case management solution. And then we have different types of case workers. We have the case managers, we have the case supervisors. As a tester, I want to confirm that Harry, as a case manager, can only perform case manager functionalities or functions, while Oge, as a case supervisor, can only perform case supervisor duties or roles. Okay, so you have to create your test case scenarios around that concept. With integration test cases, let's use SAP Suite. So SAP is an enterprise resource planning tool that organizations use to manage and integrate their core business processes. So within that suite, you can have the sales and distribution module, the materials management module, and so on. But with the sales and distribution module, for example, it's very integrated with the materials management module. So if, for example, some changes were made in the sales and distribution module, or the module was enhanced to accommodate a new process, you want to ensure that through testing or integration testing, the other module, the materials management module, still provides the expected outcomes or results for the user and works as it's expected to, and it's not in any way impacted by the changes that happened in the sales and distribution module. Okay. Then for the database test cases, this is one of my favorite test cases that I like to add to my documents, because it serves as a way to double check what I'm testing on the front end, just to confirm that what I have on the front end is the same as the results that I'm getting at the back end. So for example, if I was function testing a solution that will return names and addresses of vendors after a search is performed, I'm not just interested in seeing that results are returned to the screen, okay? I also want to confirm that if I'm seeing the user interface return 2 records for vendors A and B in Brazil, for example, running a select script against the database returns the same 2 records for vendors A and B in Brazil and not vendors C and D in Turkey. Because if the results I'm getting on the user interface is different from the results that's been returned after I run my script, I want to go back to confirm my requirements. Are they actually asking for that search for the vendors from Turkey or Brazil? Or I want to check if the developers actually did the correct thing or did the correct design for that page. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify those 3 test cases. So we'll continue. Number 8, we have the usability test cases. A usability test case can be used to reveal how users manually approach and use an application instead of providing step-by-step details. A usability test case will provide a tester with a high-level scenario or task to complete. Then we have the user acceptance test cases. These test cases focus on analyzing the user acceptance test environment, and these tests are often the last step before the system goes to production. I want to point out here that user acceptance tests are usually executed by the end user, but we'll talk about that later on. Then we also have the regression test cases. This test confirms recent code or program changes have not affected existing system features. Now, it's when I started, testing, or when I got into testing, I used to get very confused with the integration test cases and the regression test cases. So let's use the SAP suite again. With integration test cases, you have module A, you have module B, okay? SD, MM, sales and distribution, materials management, and they're very integrated. When you make a change on module A, you are testing that the integration with module B was not in any way impacted, that even though you made some changes here on module A, module B still works as expected. However, with regression testing, you are testing the solution as a whole. Now, there's some modules or some modules within the SAP suite that are not very or not completely integrated or closely tied with some other modules, like the HR module, for example. That module deals with employee and so on, all those HR things, but that module is on its own. So with regression testing, not only are you testing integration between modules A and B and being sure that changes on A did not affect B, with regression, you are also testing module C, the HR module, just to be sure that nothing was broken in any way, okay? I'm sorry, I didn't even ask if you can see my screen. Can we see my screen? Harry, just say yes. I can't see anybody actually.
Yes, we can see your screen very well.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, so let's go on. Now let's talk about test case parameters. Test case parameters are the attributes that define the test case. These attributes make test cases more reliable, clear, and concise, avoiding or reducing any sort of redundancy. So number one, we have the test case ID. What does that help us with? It's the unique identifier of the test case. That is what it is. So you can name your test case TC01, for example. Then we have the test case summary. That's just a one-liner summary of the test case. It's an optional field because we also have the description, which is the detailed description of the test case. So for example, in your description field, you are saying, verify that the user can log in with a valid username and valid password. Then number four, we have prerequisites or precondition. This is a set of prerequisites that must be followed before executing the test steps. So for example, while testing the functionality of the application after login, we can have the prerequisite field as user should be logged in the application. So I'll pause again and chip in something here. For the prerequisite, I like to include the environment where I performed the tests. And this is important because if the results a tester is getting, or someone decides to use that test case in the future, if what they're getting is different from what I documented, then they want to confirm if they are performing the test on the same environment as I did. They also want to check if the test data is obsolete. So the test data is also another parameter we will talk about. Test data is like the username and password, let's say for our login page that we are testing. If the test data is obsolete, maybe it was decommissioned, you might not be able to log in, when you're testing on that same environment. So that's also something you want to check. Or you also want to confirm if the version of the solution that you are testing is up to date, because with testing, you want to test, right? So it could be that it's the same environment, but for some reason they had to downgrade the version so that they can test something else, So I always say it's very good to include the environment where you perform the test right there as a prerequisite. And then we'll move on. Number 5, test steps. The test steps are just the detailed steps for performing the test case. And then number 6, test data. That's what I was saying, username and password. So they're just sample usernames and passwords. So you log in with this username and password, confirm that you're able to log in. You log in with another username and password that's not registered. It doesn't log in, So those are just your samples because you have to highlight all those scenarios within your test case document. Then number 7, we have the expected results. This is just stating the expected result in order to pass the test. Moving on to the next slide, we have the actual results. That's the actual results after executing the test steps. Then we have the test results. That's either the pass or the fail status. And then the comments. It's good to include valuable information which can help the team, as your comments. Automation status, this parameter is usually optional. It just tells you whether the application is automated or not. And then we have dates. That's the date the test was executed. And then we have executed by. That's the name of the person who executed the test case. So what are we saying here? The test case has prerequisites, has input values, expected results, all in a documented form that cover the different test scenarios. Now, I'll say, apart from what we have listed, this 13, there's still some other fields that you can have on your test case. You can have the project name, you can have the module name, you can have reference documents. You can also have the created by, or not or. You can have the created by and date created. And that's usually important if it's a user acceptance test case. Because remember, with user acceptance test cases, you have the test case being executed by the end user. So I'm the QA person writing the test case. In my test case document, you will see my name there as created by, but the end user who's actually using the solution is the person who will execute the test case. So they can have their name in there, executed by, and the date they executed it, and so on. Another parameter you can have is date of review and who reviewed the test case, because sometimes your team might be so large, it might be that there are levels of approvals, for the document. So you want to include all of that. And again, it also helps with in the future, if someone is testing something and they're trying to understand, they can always refer, those are living documents, right? They can always refer to those details to find out more, ask questions if there's something, they're experiencing that's different from what they see documented. Okay. So next, we will look at an example to show the parameters for a test case. So what I have on the screen is two scenarios, right? And then we have the parameters, that's the test step, the expected results, and then the actual outcome. Now, scenario one is verify that the input field, so we're using our bank app page again. So scenario one is verify that the input field can accept maximum of 10 characters. What we're saying is for the parameter test step, it can look something like log into the application and key in 10 characters. For the parameter expected result, it can look like application should be able to accept all 10 characters. For the actual outcome, it can look like application accepts all 10 characters. Then you can also have the status as another parameter, which will say pass, okay? Scenario two, verify that the input field can accept maximum of 11 characters. Now, our application is supposed to accept 10 characters, right? So just keep that in mind. So for scenario two, the test step will be looking like log in to the application and key in 11 characters. The expected result parameter can look like application should not accept all 11 characters. And then the actual outcome should be application accepts only 10 characters. And then your results will be, yes, it passed, it didn't fail. But then in the event that it accepts 11 characters, the testers are expected to log this as a defect and ensure that this defect goes through the defect lifecycle. Okay, so this I just want to use this to talk about defect logging, or what we also call defect tracking. And basically, it's just a process of tracking the log defects in a product from beginning to closure. First by inspection, then by testing, and then recording the feedback as either a pass or a fail, and then finally making a new version of the product that will fix that defect, after performing the retest. And during tests like this, the number of defects can actually get really large. And you may also need to track these defects over an extended period of time, depending on how long or whatever the duration of the project is. So if you find yourself in that situation where you're tracking defects over an extended period of time and they're quite a number, it's advisable to use a defect tracking system like Jira, and that can help make the management task of the defect lifecycle, much easier. Okay, so I just wanted to use that opportunity to talk about defect logging. Now, who should write a test case? It varies from company to company. So assuming that a team contains developers and dedicated testers, then it might be something like a joint effort. Developers will write the unit tests, developers and testers will write the integration test, and then the testers will write the acceptance test. But then once the test cases are created from the requirements, it's the job of the testers to execute those test cases. And then based on the expected and actual results, mark the test cases as pass and fail, and so on. Okay. So moving on, next we'll talk about where test cases can be implemented or executed. So test cases can be implemented by developers on the development environment. And then once the developers are satisfied, the tests are performed on the functional test environment. And then after the tests are performed on the functional test environment, once it passes and it is successful, you can perform the test on the user acceptance test environment. Bear in mind that some companies call the functional test environment the staging environment. It depends on what your company is used to. On the functional test environment, you have the QA persons, you have the BAs, you have the solution architects, enterprise architects, all doing their tests over there. On the user acceptance test environment, we have the end users performing tests there. We have the SMEs, we have the stakeholders, the clients, however, as long as they have access to that environment, and all they're doing is confirming that the test results match product requirements. So basically, it's three environments here: functional test environments, development environment, and then the user acceptance environment. Now, once the tests have passed on the UAT and they're approved by the stakeholders, all the changes and updates can then be moved to the production environment. However, bear in mind that you don't execute tests or test cases on the production. You can use the test case to confirm steps, but don't execute them on the production environment. Always do it on the functional test environment, okay? So moving on. Okay, so what are some of the best practices to write a good test case? Some of them are: it should be easy to understand and execute. You should create the test cases with the end user's perspective. What does that mean? You need to be able to think like the end user. So you need to include negative tests or unexpected things that the user will do. For example, login page, log into the profile page, and then click save without entering any data. You want to be able to ensure that your application can gracefully handle those invalid inputs and unexpected behavior. So again, for example, if the user enters a character in a numeric field, your solution should be able to display a message like incorrect data type, please enter a number, that kind of thing. Remember when we're defining what a test case is, right? We said there are a set of positive and negative executable steps. So with writing scenarios around what is an unexpected behavior is a negative test case, right? Or a negative test. And then on the other hand, positive test cases ensure that the user can perform the appropriate actions using valid data, okay? So that's just around positive and negative test cases. Now, another best practice is ensure that the test case description is concise. The test steps should be in detail and clear. Prerequisites should be listed clearly. Yes, we talked about that. Make sure you have all your prerequisites listed clearly. Specify the exact expected results. get peer review. The test case should be reusable and maintained. The test case should be written by following test case design techniques. Test case design techniques are simply just deriving the test cases from the requirement specification document, okay? And also using some of the testers' expertise to, create those concepts and scenarios. So if you follow best practices to write these test cases, anyone in the team can understand and execute the test cases easily. And as long as it's easy to read and understand, it's not just whoever who wrote it that understands it, but also other testers in the future, are able to use them as well. Okay. So, so just for fun, I did a little research about test case management tools. I know I'm almost out of time, but I'm just trying to rush. I did a little research here, and I found the tools that we have listed on the screen. I've not used any of them, but basically what they do is store information on how testing is done, plan testing activities, and report the status of the quality assurance activities. What I've been exposed to in my career is the use of SharePoint to store the test cases, that's all. And I'll say again, most of the style, the approach or process of how all of this is done solely depends on, how it's done or how it happens in your company or your organization, okay? So quickly, we'll look at a sample test case for our login page again. So with the user interface test case scenario for the login page, we can have load the page, verify that all the labels and controls, including text boxes, buttons, and links are present on the login page. Check that the font size, type of the labels and text are written on different elements are all clearly visible. That kind of thing. Verify that the application's UI is responsive. It should adjust to different screen resolution and devices. Yeah, that's very important. I was doing a test one time, and I remember just out of, I don't even know why I did it, but I think I was just trying to make the page larger. I tried to change the screen size from 75 to 100, and it won't change. So it's just things like that you want to capture around your user interface test scenarios. Okay, and then the next slide I have, we're looking at functional test case scenarios. So that can also be something like load the page, verify that as soon as the login page opens, by default, the cursor should remain on the username text box. Check that the user is not able to log in with an invalid username and password. Verify that the validation message gets displayed in case the user leaves the username or password field as blank. Okay, so it's just all of these kinds of scenarios that you can have for a function test case scenario. Now, remember, all of these test cases should be based on the stakeholder or client requirements. Okay, so quickly, I will show us what my test case documents look like. So this is just that our bank login page we're talking about. You remember the parameters tested by date, that's date of the execution, test phase. This is just telling you here that it's a function test. I have 9 test cases that I've put in the login page or on the sheet. We'll see that here. Okay. It's not. Okay. So let me. I don't know why this is not. Oh, sorry. Maybe I need to just pull up the document. Just give me 1 second. Let me pull up the document instead. Okay, so, so bear with me. Let me enlarge this for us to see. All right. So, okay. So just take this back. So the summary page, the bank login page, we've gone through this, hit that. Aha. So the bank login page functionality. This is our description here, or rather the summary. And then the description is to test the login page functionality. User is able to log in with username and password. And then remember our preconditions for the test. Test to be conducted using Microsoft Edge browser. In the future, some user might start the process or start using or may decide to use Google Chrome and reach out to you. I'm having an error, something is going on. Once you pull up a test document like this, you see, it should be conducted in Microsoft Edge. So you already know that there's something wrong somewhere. The user is doing something wrong. User is registered and has a username and password. Someone shows up and says, oh, I'm trying to log in, whereas they've not registered. You already use that as a cue to know that there's something wrong. Navigate to the functional test environment bank, FT01. That's the environment where this test happened. So we have those, our scenarios, our steps, the steps for those scenarios. Load the page, navigate to the home screen, click on the login link, your expected results. If it passes, you want to change that to pass. Verify that all the labels and controls, including the text boxes, buttons, and so on, are present on the login page. Did it pass or did it fail? No, it failed. You log that as your defect. You can include your defect notes right here. That's also a parameter we talked about. And then you can see here, I also put in a database script, right? It depends on you how you want to do it. Maybe you want to add that as a step, but I usually like to put my step here, maybe search to confirm search button is working. And then right here, I'm putting the script to show that I actually ran that search also on the database, and I'm getting the same results as what I'm getting on the user interface. Then another note can just be for just some awareness for the team. A comment right there. The tooltip for the location icon is available when the user hovers on the mouse. It could be that this was not part of the requirements that the clients asked for, right? But just adding that there just lets someone who's using it in the future know that, oh, the developers were kind enough to add this feature for the clients. The amount cannot exceed 999.99. The user can only enter 5 digits before the decimal point and 2 digits after the decimal point. So this is just comments, right? Just so that whoever is looking at this or whoever is testing, just has an idea of what is going on in the application. Okay, so that's that. We'll just go back to my screen. I think that's the end of the presentation. I think. Yes, so so that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening. And the floor is open for questions and comments. We're all here to learn. So Harry, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne, for that. And thank you for the insight and also for at least showing us some, would I say practical, showing us some of the documents that you use and how you use them. I think that brings it to life, so it's not just about what we read about testing. I have a couple of questions, and I also like others. If you have questions, please do post them, and Yvonne is going to attend to them. The first question is, how do you maintain the test document, especially for retesting, to identify what worked before or how it worked or how it is working now? Okay, you know what? Let me take that again. It's kind of like a mouthful. How do you maintain the test document? I think it's really about how do you maintain your test document for reuse? How do you maintain the test document, especially for retesting, to identify what worked, how it worked, and how it is working now?
Okay, so for reuse, let me I'll go back to this slide. This is my test document, for example. With maintaining it, I want to make sure that once I have completed tests, I've documented my results. I've checked the login page, I've checked the cosmetics, I've seen that everything works, everything is looking good. I will end up having this document stored on SharePoint. That's what I use. I use SharePoint. But then with maintaining it for future use rather, it's just simply keeping the document as is, making sure that I have all of the details as much as possible, even screenshots. I put screenshots within the document, making sure that it is what I saw during testing that I capture in the document, and I have that saved in SharePoint, so that in future, if, for example, it was not the login page that was worked on, let's say it was some other page, I want to be able to go to my SharePoint location, pull up this document, and if it's a regression test I'm doing where I'm testing the whole solution, I'm not just developing the test for the other new page that was created, or developing the test case for the other new page that was created and testing. I'm also reusing this same document to retest the login page. Okay, I don't know if that answered the question.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you for that. I think what I heard is about making sure that the document is holistic. It doesn't just capture the results and the notes, it also captures like screenshots of things that happened. So if you're going to use that again, or someone else is going to use that test document or test summary, it kind of makes sense. Maybe they're upgrading that system. They at least have an idea of how the test went, what failed, what were the defects, and how they were
exactly. In fact, it's you can even include the bug numbers. Like we have a system where we record the bugs during the process of testing. You can put in the details of the bug in there, the date it was resolved, and you are tracking it. So with my document, I have my summary page where I'm tracking its passed, failed, so that immediately I open this document, I can see that, oh, I have 9 test cases. So far, I've tested 3. Out of those 3, 1 failed, But if at the end of the day, I complete testing and that one still has to remain as failed, I want to make sure I have my comments in there and details of why that has to remain that way. Maybe it's something that they just have to accommodate, I don't know, for several reasons, right? So it's whatever it is you saw, you want to put there, so that next time when someone else is using it, they are able to, understand why you documented it that way. Okay, so that's yeah.
Also, elaborate answer. The second question is, what is the role of a business analyst in testing?
That question, well, I'm a BA, but I also do testing. So as a BA, you will wear so many hats, and it depends on your company. Again, some companies like to split the roles. This person is the QA person, this person is the developer, and so on. But as a BA, you might have to be involved in testing, because the major role of a BA is, all about gathering requirements and serving as that middleman between the technical team and the end users, right? So if you are in between, you must be able to understand the language of both sides, how the user is saying it, interpret it to the developers, how the developers are saying it, and break that down for the end users, right? So you will still sort of be involved in testing, because you are involved in the process of defining and developing the solution. So you always have a role to play. Even if you are probably not part of the quality assurance team, it's important on your own just to ensure that the requirements you gathered are in line with what was developed at the end, for your own benefit, to be sure that your work was properly done. You should test. Okay, so that's my answer for that question.
Yvonne, thank you for that. So for the person that asked that question, like Yvonne said, as a BA, you have to be well-rounded. You could do testing, you could write requirements, but why write requirements and you can't even test if the solution meets those requirements? So thank you, Yvonne, for that. Another question is, can you speak about crowd testing?
Crowd testing, I haven't heard that before.
Okay, I've also not heard that before, so I can't even chime in. So whoever asked that question, you can signify with your hands, and I'll see if you can, maybe explain more to us. But I've not heard that before too. Like,
yeah, I haven't heard that before. I'll check online and see what it's about, but I've not come across that before. Crowd testing.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to the other questions. Says, who writes the test cases, and are the test cases automated or manual? Okay, who writes the test cases?
Okay, so it's I'll say it's more of a joint effort, right? You can have the developers writing the unit test cases for those smallest testable elements of the solution. You can have the testers or the BAs and quality assurance people writing the functional test cases or integration test cases, or that's the bigger pieces. And then the same quality assurance people will write the user acceptance test cases. So it depends on how the work is being split, but then the bulk of the tests cases, or the test cases being written, has to be done by the testers or done by the BA people, the set of people who are collecting the requirements. Because you're collecting requirements, you're saying that, what do you want? You're asking, what do you want? They're saying this and this and this is what we want. You're going back and telling the developers, please design this according to how they've asked. You can't just go back and say, okay, they've designed it, here you go. You have to confirm that what they designed is what those other people asked for, as the end users asked for. And in doing that, you are writing your test cases to confirm. So I'll say it's the bulk of that work is done by the BA, the QA team, solutions architects, enterprise architects, and what have you. Those are the set of people I'll say write those test cases.
Yeah, and a follow-up to that question, which I don't understand, but I'll say it anyway. Are test cases automated or manual?
Well, I'll say they're manual, because you will write them, you will prepare them based on the scenarios, and then you will execute them. So when we say execute, we're not scheduling it within a system and asking it to run. No. You're basically going into the system, and when we say execute, you're actually going step by step. Click the login link, enter username and password. Is the password accepted? Is the password not accepted? Land on the profile page. It's the step by step. So yeah, it's manual. It's not automated, because you have to execute it yourself. I hope I answered I answered that question clearly enough.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The next one is what are the prerequisite skills for a quality assurance tester?
Okay, off the top of my head, I'll say you have to pay attention, be able to pay a lot of attention to detail. There's a lot of nuance, right, between QA people, BAs. With skills, I'll use myself as an example. You might want to include having programming skills like SQL, being able to use Excel, because you want to be able to design your test cases. Maybe at some point, apart from, preparing your test documents in this format, you also want to be able to test some data on using Excel formulas, that kind of thing. So you need a little bit of programming skills there. You need to be able to pay a lot of attention to detail. You need to have an eye for high quality work. You want to also be able to think from the end user's perspective, right? Think outside of the box. So everybody knows that once they say design this solution in this format, we are expecting to go the happy path. You log in, you do this, these are the expected things to happen. How about the unexpected? So you want to be able to think outside the box, right? Those are the skills that comes to mind now. I don't know if any other person has any other, if we have any QA persons on the call, you might want to chime in. Otherwise, yeah, this is what I think, those skills are what I think you should have.
Okay. In what test case parameter do you record the negative test and unexpected behaviors?
I'll say that should happen in your results. So let me use, since we have this page here, since we have this page open here, I'll just quickly go there. So let's say we have another negative test case right here that says login with 10 characters, no, 11. Our profile page accepts username that is 10 characters, right? So we log in here, and we are able to log in with the 11 characters. Now, assuming that question, what that question is trying to say is, if it fails, how do you log that? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it says, no, it just says, how do you record negative tests and unexpected behaviors?
Okay, so if, for example, the 11 characters went through, that's a negative test, but then it passed. It's not supposed to pass. So you want to put that here as passed. However, you're putting your notes and indicating that this is a bug and logging it in your bug tracking or defects tracking tool, so that when and again, it depends on you. You might even want to put that as a fail. I think it will be better to put it as a fail, so that when you're looking at your summary page, for example, if you have yours like mine, you can see that, oh, there's something that's failed here, and you can even indicate somewhere around here that second error is due to so and so and so, So when you have the bug tracked, you want to put the number of the bug in here, and then you're tracking it on the other system and making sure that any updates you have is entered in here. When the developers say, oh, they've corrected it, all is well, you go back, you retest, and then it's successful. This time it doesn't allow 11 characters. You want to include it in your notes here. And it's also good to do that so that whoever is using these documents in the future can see that, okay, this thing failed at some point. Because what I've seen happen so many times during testing is that sometimes that particular test case that failed at one point in time, when they do one upgrade, you notice that that same one, fails again, so it can help you catch a trend or catch something that's happened in the past. So that's basically how I'll advise you log a negative test result.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just quickly add to what Yvonne said. So the way you write your test case, like you could have written maybe verified that password over 10 characters, 10 characters are accepted. But if you want to write the negative, you can say verify that passwords over 12 characters are not accepted. That way you can ensure that the result becomes a failed, so that when you are totaling your test summary, you are capturing what failed, truly failed, and what truly passed. So I think it's just the language.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for that. The next question is, how does automated testing work?
To be honest, I don't do automated testing. I don't know how that works. With automated testing, I think maybe, I don't know. I don't really know which departments or teams, I'll say, use such types of tests. So it's something I may have to research on, but what I'm exposed to is more of I'll say manual test cases, where you put your test cases based on the scenarios you have captured from your requirements, and be a standard. You collect your requirements, elicit and gather them. And then with testing, you want to make sure that it's in line with those requirements. So that's basically the path that I've been exposed to. I'm not sure about how the automated tests work.
Yeah, so the little I know about automated tests is just that you could use a software or a tool. For instance, you are trying to test the capacity of a system and how many concurrent users can maybe log on to that system. So if the requirement is saying that, your non-functional requirement is saying that there should be about 1,000 concurrent users can log into the system without any service degradation, you definitely can't get 1,000 people to do your test, but you could use a system to mimic people trying to log on to that system, or maybe like 1 million people on that system. And you can write a script, and a script will automate that test for you, because it's almost humanly impossible. So I think that helps. Okay. Somebody yes, there's a question about crowd testing. So I say Fumi said, she asked the question. She said crowd testing is like contracting testing on a large scale for performance usability across various mobile devices. I'm wondering about how to coordinate something like that. How do you coordinate crowd testing?
So does that mean the crowd testing is peculiar to just mobile devices?
Crowd testing is a new kind of quality assurance. And, let's say, for instance, but it's mainly used for mobile apps. Instead of having maybe buying multiple devices in your organization, the QA team, so many people, all your customers have mobile devices, so they could do the test for you. But from what I can see online, it's outsourced to specialized companies. One of them is Global App Testing. They have lots of people that can do the test with you, but they don't reside in your company. They are everyday people using that mobile app. So it's usually outsourced to another company, and I'm sure there's a system around that. And I'm not just sure what that really is, but it can be outsourced. Okay. Any more questions? and we've gone beyond our time. So I want to appreciate Yvonne. Thank you for your time. I enjoyed the detail, and you just seem to like touch everything that we need to know about testing. We have, by the side, we also do trainings. So we have a couple of our students here to try to get tips from you on how to carry out their practicum testing, because they're right now doing their practicum testing. So some of them are here trying to like, what can we get from this? So thank you, Yvonne, for the insight. One question that I would like to ask, but that question is not for Yvonne, it's for all of us. Please, can you put on all your videos and your camera so we can just, take a quick picture, with Yvonne, and take a quick picture with Yvonne. Please put on your camera. It's just for a few, maybe 1 minute. I'll let you know. And please, if you don't have your makeup, you can quickly put on your makeup for those that want to put on makeup. But we're all beautiful people here and handsome, so you might not really need the makeup. Yes, Neem, I can see your hand. Yes, great. Put on your cameras. Let me just, hold on. Let me just get I want to get my physical camera so I can, is any, oh, driving, please. No, if you are driving, please just focus on the road. Don't worry about the camera. Is anybody still putting on their camera? Okay. If you are, we'll give it like 20 more seconds. And I want that lovely smile. I saw the smile. Okay, so in 5 seconds, we'll be taking the picture. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to tell everyone, thank you for attending. Thank you to Yvonne. Thank you. If Yvonne and I were here and you were all not here, it would not be worth it. So you are very, very, very important to us. Thank you. Please follow us on all our social media platforms. Where in the next 2 weeks, we are going to have another webinar, and it's going to be on product management. And we're having a very seasoned product manager, and she'll be talking about product management and some very important tips. So follow us on all our social media platforms so you know exactly what we are coming up with next or who is going to be speaking. And I wish you all a beautiful night rest. And I also wish you a very wonderful career. I don't know if you're a business analyst or you are not, but whatever career you are in, I wish you success, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody, and bye.